All right, we are live on YouTube. We are ready when you are.
Great. Good evening and welcome to the March 8th, 2023 Henrietta Town Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek.
Here.
Councilmember Bolzner.
Here.
Councilmember Page.
Here.
Councilmember Belanca.
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the night with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I make a motion to approve the minutes of our preceding meeting from February 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner.
Aye.
Councilmember Page.
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. First up, we have a public hearing for special use permit application number 2023-006 and 007. La Quinta by Wyndham Hotel, Fair Avenue, to construct a 4-story hotel with approximately 84 rooms, 2023-06, and a height of 60 feet, 2023-07. We have representatives. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Betsy Brugg. I'm an attorney here on this application. We got our whole team here. Jess Sudol and Josh Saxton from Passero Associates are here as well. As you may or may not recall, there was a approval granted, special use permit approval granted for a hotel and also for the height, kind of at the a little pre-COVID, I guess. So there was a setback with the project, largely because of COVID. The hotel industry did not fare well for a while there, so things are bouncing back and the project is going to move forward. There are some minor changes. The hotel project is a little smaller. It's still a Wyndham brand, but a different brand of that company. So it's La Quinta. It's a slightly smaller footprint, fewer rooms. Still will continue to serve the community, serve the needs of the Dome, which has events and needs access to hotel rooms in order to be able to host certain types of events. So we still need a special use permit. It has expired, so we're here for reapproval for the hotel use, and the change in the design requires a modification to the height. Instead of, I believe we were approved at 53 feet. I think on this particular building, we're at 60 feet. It's just because of the architecture. The whole building is not at that same elevation. It's just it's part of the architectural design. I think you're familiar with the site. It's set back from Calkins Road, so it's not right up on the street. It's pretty comparable and consistent with the other buildings in the area. It's not going to hover over the residents. I know that's always a concern of the town of anything up on Calkins. I'm going to turn it over to Jess so he can talk about the changes to the plan. And we've addressed the special permit standards. It's in the application. If you have any questions, we are certainly glad to go through that.
Great.
Thanks, Betsy. Good evening again. Jess Sudol from Passero Associates. As Betsy mentioned, this parcel has quite a history dating all the way back until 2014, when we originally did the overall seeker review for the entire, at the time was called the town center. And that included the Dome redevelopment, as well as the apartments, which are now largely constructed, and 2 commercial parcels that were in the B1 zoning district, one of them being directly next to the library right on Calkins Road, and the other parcel being this one here, which is behind the original parcel I just mentioned. So since 2014, the owners have been diligently trying to find some users that would fit within that commercial district designation, and struggled a little bit to do that, especially with this back parcel because it doesn't have frontage on one of the main arterials. In 2018, as Betsy mentioned, We did begin to work with Wyndham on a 4-story, 127 room hotel, and that's actually a site plan that Josh has out now in front of you. Then, of course, COVID kind of shut the plans down on the hospitality industry at large. So this project actually went all the way through site plan approval. We got all of our approvals from the DOT, from water, sewer, et cetera. We're ready to start, and then it fell through. So it sat for several more years, and the owners continued to look for potential users who would be interested in it. The only users that really surfaced were self-storage and car washes, which we didn't think would be a very worthy use of the land. So kind of stopped those when we got those original phone calls. Then fortunately, and most recently, we did get another hospitality, specifically a hotel user with La Quinta. And that's the plan that's obviously been submitted. The footprint and the scope of the project is significantly smaller than the Wyndham Hawthorne Hotel that was approved back in 2019. We went from 127 rooms down to 84 rooms, so quite a reduction. Obviously, along with that, the parking was also reduced pretty significantly. So the overall footprint of the development area and any associated environmental impact is a lot less. We get left off with a lot more green space and a lot more flexibility to put the hotel there. This is actually the original concept plan that La Quinta put together using one of their prototypes. We submitted it, right when we put our application in. Based on some feedback that we got through the process, we have made some revisions. Now, these revisions aren't necessarily applicable to the special use permit, typically things we would handle at site plan review with the planning board. But nonetheless, I thought it would be good for the benefit of this board to show you some of the things we're thinking about. For starters, we didn't have a whole lot of green space here between the parking lot and our property lawns along Minerva Campbell Way and also Fair Avenue. So we've moved that back to create more of a green lawn and landscaping area and buffer between the right-of-way and our parking areas. And there's also a curb cut directly across from the library that was installed when Minerva Campbell Drive was put in. So we're going to go ahead and utilize that rather than trying to put a new curb cut in. So even with including those changes, we're still left with a very comfortable site plan, without having, much impact on any of our adjacent properties. In fact, the original approval going back to 2019 had several variances associated with it, one for the front setback to the canopy, and also one to the residential buffer to the south where the apartments are. We're going to be able to build this particular plan and avoid any variances, including those two that I just mentioned. So we think it works out. We're very hopeful that, now that we have La Quinta on board and we actually have a whole team of people from La Quinta working with our architects and structural engineers and civil engineers on getting this thing going in pretty short order. So we're hopeful it's going to start construction very soon after we get through the site plan review process. And we're very hopeful that once this thing gets approved and under construction, and certainly when it's built, it will drive a lot more activity to the front parcel that's actually on Calkins Road. If you've ever been to a hotel, most hotels have, restaurants around them. And we've really been trying to find a restaurant use for that front parcel because we think it would work well there. And we're hopeful that this could be a really positive step in that direction. So with that, and Betsy and Josh here, we're of course happy to answer any questions.
Sounds good. So I do like the shifts that you have in the plans, that those are, I think those improve the overall plan. One of the conditions that I had put on the resolution was that if you either use the existing entrance off of Minerva or you extend the sidewalk through, because, again, when we built it, Minerva Campbell, the belief was this was going to be there. And so we didn't build the sidewalk there.
Right.
We built it where the other location. So the fact that you're reusing the existing sidewalk essentially solves that, takes care of that. So that's really, there's the traditional condition that all site plan approvals and other stuff get obtained, but that's standard. So that was really the only thing I saw with regards to this. And
Jeff, there's no, so there's no restaurant inside, no pool?
No, not inside this one.
What?
No, sir.
Okay. The only other thing, and I was involved with the other one before, so I'm familiar with that, but there was an issue about the width of your driveways for the turning radius of the biggest fire truck. we
Sure.
have.
So, and I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that when I was explaining the changes we've made. We've increased the width of all the driving aisles to 26 feet as requested by the fire marshal.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Did you say there is not a pool?
No.
It said there was no restaurant.
Oh, I thought he said restaurant or
And there's no pool either, right?
There is a pool.
I
Oh,
think
there is
was
a pool.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
It's,
that part.
it's internal though. It's not.
Right.
Right,
Internal, right?
not an outside
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Is this an extended stay?
pool. No, I don't believe so. I mean, people can stay as long as they want if they want to pay, but
There are questions? I have one, but it's tangentially related. There's more. I assume you're seeking a pilot again? Okay, could you come on up to the address that? So just go ahead and repeat that for the in case they didn't. pick up on
I
that.
believe they will be requesting a pilot. They were approved previously, so I
Right.
believe they will be
The
reapproved.
the challenge I had with the community management at the time, I had a big issue with the fact that the pilot was tied to the dome in order to get the pilot.
Mhm.
And yet if if the dome ceased operations, the pilot would continue. I would fight that tooth and nail. If you're getting the pilot because of helps the operations of the dome, then as far as I'm concerned, that pilot, if the dome ceases to operate, the pilot terminates. I just want to make sure you guys are aware that it just
Well,
again
I'm
doesn't.
sure that the IDA will take note of your comments.
Yep. So I just wanted you guys to know that, so there's no surprises. Because like I said, last time they approved it over, I can't even say over the town's objections because they really didn't ask the town's opinion back then. This commuter management is more receptive to town, but like I said, I just didn't want you to be caught by surprise because it to me just makes sense. If you're getting a tax break because you're helping the operation of the dome, and I personally think the dome is a valuable asset to this town and worth protecting. Then, but if it ceases to operate, then the pilot should cease, in my opinion, but don't know where others feel on that. It's not really, that's what I'm saying. It's not part of I can't put it as a condition. No, it has nothing to do with the special use permit. This is just informing them that
Thank you.
I intend to make that challenge, so.
Okay.
I just don't want them to be caught by surprise.
No, I think we're aware of your
Yep.
sentiment on that. We
Yeah.
respectfully disagree, but we
Yeah, understood.
noted. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments from the town board? Is there any comments, feedback from the public? Okay, coming up, if you could just move aside. No, please come on up to the microphone. And then just state your name.
My name is, I'm Doug Tyson. And I actually got two questions. They had talked about a spray park being built back there. Is that still on the books or?
The spray park, that will be coming up later, unrelated to this, but it would be in talking with our grounds crew, we're probably looking at the location will most likely be south of the large playground area.
Okay,
So it's a good distance away from here.
okay. And also with the rec center and the library and now the hotel and possibly a restaurant in there, with everything on the south side there, is there any thoughts about developing the north side of Calkins Road? Where there's currently residential houses?
Not that I'm aware of. I know
Okay.
there is one property owner who approached me, I think my first year in office, about rezoning it, and I told him I had no interest in it.
That was me.
Oh, was you? Okay.
No, I was just curious. I mean, it is what it is. I'm just curious if I had heard.
There might have
we
been
just purchased
someone
our
else
house in
too.
2019 and our neighbors were telling us there that they had heard talk about developing the north side of Calkins Road. So I was just wondering if that was anything that was a reality or anything people.
No, I don't think it was you the person I'm talking to. You might have come and asked me that.
It was
Oh,
not him
okay.
because I
Oh,
know who the person is.
Yeah. He was a little more, shall I say, forceful and less polite.
Yeah.
But
I hope it wasn't me then.
but that might be where those rumors started, because
Yeah.
he was in here essentially lobbying for that.
No.
I don't know how others feel. I love the look of the residential on Calkins Road, especially during the parade and such like that.
Me too.
I'd have no interest in seeing that change, but
Okay. very
I'm
good.
just
I was
1/5 of this board.
I was just curious if that was just a vicious rumor from around the
Well,
neighborhood or if there was a reality to that.
Well, like I said, there was one individual who just had recently purchased a property with the hopes that it would be
Right.
rezoned.
Yeah, but it is currently zones residential, that area. Yeah,
The north side is R115.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
We had just purchased a property hoping that would not happen. So-
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's pretty unanimous
Yeah.
across the board. Any other questions? Anything online? And hearing and seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for special use permit applications number 2023-006 and 007, La Quinta by Wyndham Hotel. Can I get a, oh, it doesn't have names assigned.
No.
Well, I'll put it for you. Fellow town board members. I have resolution 5-99, 2023 to issue a negative declaration and approve special use permit applications number 2023-006 and 2023-007 for La Quinta by Wyndham for a hotel on Fair Avenue.
Second.
I again will just read the conditions that are included. That any further required approvals be obtained, including site plan approval from the planning board and any required variances at the zoning board of appeals. And that the project uses the existing entrance off of Minerva Campbell Way, or if relocating the entrance, extends the existing sidewalk through the existing entrance being abandoned in favor of the new. So since you're going to be keeping the old, you satisfy that condition. So. Can I get a second?
I seconded it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. That's right, you did it before I read the conditions. Yep. Any further discussion? Then hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations. Do you have an idea as to when work might start? I realize you got a lot of approvals left to go through, but did you have a target date?
I would say 3 months from now, hopefully.
3 months? Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed historic site designation for Chapman Corner Park at 5694 West Henrietta Road. Representing the applicant is our chairman of the Historic Site Committee, Gary Goodrich. Gary, come up and present your case.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. My name is Gary Goodrich. I chair the Henrietta Historic Site Committee. The West Henrietta hamlet represents a significant part of Henrietta's history as one of the earliest settlements in Henrietta and still has an intact character setting of early 19th century buildings. This area was critical to the development of the town of Henrietta. The first hotel in the hamlet was built on the southeast corner in 1821 by Henry Chapman, which is the property we're considering for designation. The hotel was a stop along what was to become the West Henrietta Plank Road between Rochester and Point South. It eventually became a private residence owned by Mrs. Craig Nelson, a descendant of Henry Chapman, the pioneer family. The building was regrettably demolished in 2006. This property was also the site of the Three Sisters Ice Cream, a well-known destination in Henrietta, which was named for the three sisters of a family which were descendants of Henry Chapman. In 2021, the property was purchased by Ann Stevens and Bill Shattuck with the goal of preserving this corner. They converted the former Three Sisters Ice Cream building into a historic pavilion centered on the history of the West Hamlet, coordinating with our town historian, Tina Thompson, the Historic Site Committee, and various departments within the town of Henrietta. Our committee thanks them for their efforts and foresights in preserving and safeguarding this property. The town of Henrietta purchased this property to be known as Chapman's Corner Park in January of 2023 from Ann and Bill. The Henrietta Historic Committee has recommended the Town Board of Henrietta designate this property at 5694 West Henrietta Road a historic site of Henrietta. Thank you.
Questions? We've been through this a lot in various steps along the way, but didn't know if anybody has any questions, comments that they'd like to add before we.
Just to say again that this is going to be, I think, a beautiful contribution to the town, and so appreciate all the work that so many people have put into to this park, and I think it's going to be something that will be memorable for many generations to come.
I agree, Millie. I congratulate Ann and Bill and thank them from the bottom of my heart. As a town board member, it gives me great pleasure to add value to our community. And this adds major value to the west side of our beloved town, and nothing but good things are going to come from it.
I will just again make clear that I will be abstaining from this as I am involved in a project next door that could potentially arguably benefit from this, although I actually think most of the benefit will flow in the other direction. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, I've been working for years on trying to get the Cartwrights Inn restored. And I announced at the State of the Town address that I did find a developer who was willing to do this, and he has closed or is closing on both the historic inn and the historic house. The plans are to essentially tear the house down to its bones. I've been inside the house. I went in the middle of a freezing winter so that any spores would be less likely to be floating around. But it's post and beam construction. They were 12-inch square, old growth trees. That skeleton is super strong, and that's not going anywhere. Obviously, the roof sheathing, a bunch of the siding, all has to be redone. The add-on kitchens that are to the west all pretty much have to come down. And the plan is to tear those down and in the place build a new kitchen that runs north-south instead of east-west. And what that would allow is the the parking lot to have an exit out onto Erie Station Road, with the idea that it would be a right turn out only off of West Henrietta Road. On behalf of the project, I have approached the New York State DOT about the possibility of eliminating the second southbound lane. And if the DOT were willing to do that, the developer will put in a sidewalk, and he will do a crosswalk so that there'll be a crosswalk from there to Ken's Pizza Corner, then across. And so hopefully there'll be crosswalks in all four directions at that intersection. So very excited about that. It's been years working on this. It's thankfully for this particular developer, and he hasn't made public who he is yet, but his company's very first holiday picnic or holiday dinner was at the Cartwrights Inn. So it's a bit of a labor of love for him, because if you know anything, the chance he'll be lucky to break even for quite some time, if at all. It's going to be a lot of work, but I look forward to working with him on that. We will probably be coming in for some incentive zoning. We'll take a look at that in terms of specifically their goals to try to get as much green space in the front, preserve as much green space as possible, which again, if you go back to the denial of the Dollar General, which I had to recuse myself, that's how far back my involvement goes. That was one of the big things, is that they were eating up all the green space in the historic property. So there's ways to potentially preserve that, so that they'll be coming in at some point with some plans. I'd seen some preliminary, gave them some suggestions on how to improve them, and again, expand those green space. So, unfortunately, in the East Hamlet, most of the historic buildings have burned down. or been struck by garbage trucks that people didn't put on break in on. So the fact that we have so many historic properties in the West Hamlet, I think this is phenomenal. And when you combine this with the work that the Historic Site Committee is doing with regards to the historic district, which will help further preserve properties and also give an opportunity for current property owners, if they want to restore, it would give them access to some potential grants that they otherwise might not have access to. So a lot of work's being done to preserve the history there. And in fact, Gary and I were just talking, one of the other sides going further back in time. Gary has reached out, so he and I were talking about this sometime last fall, that we have a bunch of historic designations that are all from roughly the 1800s on. People have been in this area for thousands of years before, so we've reached out to the Seneca Nation to have them talk to us and come in and identify historic Seneca Nation sites along here as well. And if you know anything about the early days of the development of Western New York, many of the roads that we travel today were originally Native American trails. And so it's going to be interesting to see, where those sites are going to be. And, I suspect there will be some in the West Village. I suspect there's going to be some over near the RIT campus and along the Riverwalk Trail. So I'm very excited about that. So all this kind of ties together, a large effort to preserve the history of our town. And again, very thankful to our town historian, our historic site committee, and residents like Bill and Ann who, work towards preserving that history, as well as, everybody involved, including the members of pretty much every town board I've served with. So thanks again. Any other discussion? Any comments from the public? Then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed historic site designation for Chapman's Corner Park. Next up, we have a public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta Town Code to update Town Code Chapter 79 relative to dogs. And more specifically, it's to dog control officer. The current code basically says that the only people who can enforce that section of code is an animal control officer or the Monroe County Sheriff. The town has made the decision to hire a dog control officer per ag and market law. And therefore, we currently have nobody who can enforce the code with regards to dog licenses, dog barking, things like that. So we're going to fix that. We had talked about the possibility of having it be dog control officer or animal control officer. If you read the ag and markets law, it basically says that an animal control officer can serve as a dog control officer. So what we would do is if we did hire an animal control officer, we would essentially, in their title, they would also be dog control officer. So they'd still be able to enforce this section of code. But it's largely a fix so that, we had basically a barking dog complaint come in and we had nobody who could enforce it, because surprisingly to me, code enforcement officers, for some reason, this section of code enforcement officers couldn't do it. So now it's dog control officers or their designees. So if the dog control officer says, Mr. Cashin, who's one of our code enforcement officers, please go address this, they would be able to go and issue the notice of violation. So any questions? Anything from the public? Anything online? It's online mostly, it's all town, okay. Then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta Town Code to update Town Code Chapter 79. Finally, we have the public hearing for the proposed establishment of Extension 172 to the Henrietta Water District Number 1. So this is one of the projects we're doing with the ARPA infrastructure money, although as I mentioned previously, what we will more likely do is use all the ARPA money on the new town court so that we only have to file the voluminous paperwork once. And that we don't have to worry about, because some of the other infrastructure projects that we had originally planned with the infrastructure portion of the ARPA funds, those are a little further down the road. Whereas the court's getting done now, so we wouldn't have to worry about whether the funding ever expired. But basically, very simply, whatever we're using in terms of the infrastructure money for the town court, we would essentially use the fund balance money that was otherwise going to go to the town court. We'll use that for the infrastructure stuff instead. But again, the plan is to put in a water main along Middle Road, along the west side of Middle Road, going from Lehigh Station Road to stopping somewhere just north of the thruway. And so this is showing the district, the 3 color codes there. The green is the district we're proposing to create. The other 4 colors there, those are other existing water districts already existed, but they don't serve those parcels that are in green. So we've received, I don't know if we have what the latest percentage is, but we were well above the 50% requirement in order to call the public hearing. The responses continue to come in. I've not heard of a single resident who was against this. In fact, most of them are very passionately for this project. When this area was rezoned industrial, these people are all on wells, and there was one of the industrial properties had a spill, a contamination spill, which potentially gets into the water system. So it's crazy to me that, first off, it's bad enough that they're on wells, but second, that they're on wells in an industrial district. That makes no sense to me. But it's kind of legacy, and that's what we're here to fix. So any questions, comments? Anything from the public? Then hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed establishment of extension number 172 to the Henrietta Water District Number 1. That concludes our public hearings. Can I get my second resolution?
Yep, hold on, let me just bring that up.
Really, I think.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 5-100, 2023 to authorize bills payable and any associated contracts or agreements for February 27th, 2023 through today, March 8th, 2023. Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-101, 2023 to designate Chapman's Corner Park at 5694 West Henrietta Road as a historical site. Should I keep reading the whole thing since it goes into what happened? Want me to read the whole resolution?
I don't think we
Yeah,
have a
okay.
need to, because we did that when we
All right.
accepted the donation.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Congratulations, Gary.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Gary.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 5-102/2023. This resolution would establish extension number 172 for Middle Road, located south of Water District Extension 109 to the New York State Thruway I-90 to the West Henrietta Water District number 1.
Seconded.
I'll just say that I'd like to thank the engineering department and especially Lucas Bushin, who is the deputy director and has been doing large amounts of work on getting this through, including working with the Monroe County Water Authority, which is not always the easiest thing. Any further comments, questions? Anything from the public? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-103/2023 to authorize the buyback of streetlights from Rochester Gas and Electric.
Second. So this is part of a long process. Anyone who's been coming to town boards knows well about them. This is in the next 3 resolutions. Through the section of state energy law with regards to energy performance contracts. It's a way for municipalities to upgrade their lights or insulation or heating systems, things that can make their building more energy efficient, and to do so in a cost neutral way. And so the idea is that there are guaranteed savings, which the energy performance contractor has done what's called an industrial grade audit. And they've determined how much savings we're going to have, and they guarantee that. So if we don't get those savings, they will actually pay that difference. As a result, then it also includes financing under the that same section of law that allows us to bond or lease the equipment out with the goal of that we set up a lease schedule such that the lease payments are less than those guaranteed energy savings. And one of the other things they did in the guaranteed energy savings, since we're saving money by taking those streetlights off of what's called their schedule SC1 and putting them on a schedule SC2, which basically means we now own them and we're responsible for upkeep. They actually back out from the savings. They allocate, it starts at $25,000 and it goes up 3% a year to for us to hire out somebody to maintain them, because we don't have anybody who can deal with the line voltage that's up on these for the lights that are attached to utility poles. So but that, you know, there'll be an initial warranty period. The expected lifespan of most of these lights that we're going to be upgrading to are about 20 years. The break-even point, or basically the lease, would run through 13 or 14 years, and that's going to depend on what the interest rates do between now and when we actually need the money. But in all told, again, we'll be able to do this without any out-of-pocket money, and that's not exactly accurate because we'll put some money up, but we'll be reimbursed when the lease comes in. But at the end of the day, you know, there'll be none of your property tax dollars will be going towards the upgrades of these lights. They'll be more energy efficient, so we'll be helping the planet. We're also working we've been doing some of these tests, lights to figure out which ones we think look the best, will provide better lighting. So Centrica has come in and done an analysis on how to better light. So for instance, right out here on Calkins Road, those lights are supposed to light the sidewalk. And if you ever walked it, not currently, there's these big gaps. It gets bright and then it gets very dark. And so the new lights will cast the light sideways to better light the trail, the path, without hopefully imposing heavily upon the motorists going by. So a lot of work has been involved in this. My deputy town supervisor has been instrumental in this, Craig Eckert. A lot of legal work for Don Young, our attorney, as well as we brought in an external counsel who has expertise in energy performance contracts and that portion of energy law, because it's a bit more obscure. So this is, I think we've been working on this close to a year now, or maybe even longer than that. I think it was maybe about a year ago that we actually awarded the contract. So it's a lot of lifting, and since the Public Service Commission is involved, it is not a speedy process, not to mention the utilities aren't exactly fast either. So we'll actually have a second utility purchase. That's National Grid. They are significantly different in size of scope. I think there are seven fixtures in National Grid territory. It's basically Rush Henrietta Town Line Road, not much beyond that. And the rest is all RG&E, and that there are more like 7,000. I don't know if it's quite that many, but it's a lot. So very excited. It's been a lot of heavy lifting getting it there. Thank you to Centrica, who's our energy performance contractor. Again, it's been a lot of work to get here. Questions or comments? So I know we've had a number of different hearings on this and talked about it a lot. So I know the town board's very much up. Is there anything from the public? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 5-104, 2023 to authorize the buyback of streetlights from National Grid.
Second.
So the one I get to put forth is the smallest one we've got. Just kidding. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 5-105, 2023 to accept the investment grade audit and approve an energy performance contract with Centrica Business Solutions Incorporated.
Seconded.
So I will also throw in those thanks. Deputy Town Clerk Jennifer Miranda, who has had to put all these things together as red lines have come in and then replace them. And some are draft schedules because, like, for instance, for the lease, we really won't know the schedule until the stuff is purchased and what the interest rates are at the time that we actually go to take out. We don't want to lock in now because otherwise the money would be sitting there in escrow and we'd be paying interest on it, which doesn't make sense. So in addition, some of the contracts included confidential information from the corporation. So she had to have redacted versions and non-redacted. It's been a lot of work on her part, and she's phenomenal, thankfully. So again, thanks to her too.
I'm assuming that the wordage and numbers in this resolution is the 13-year program, correct? If we needed to go to the 14-year program, would we have to do another resolution?
No.
Good.
The way we did this is it's no greater than 14. It is, the stuff is
exceed.
currently, so the guarantee is for 14 years is what we did, because even if we pay it off in 13, but the lease, the way we did the lease is it's no greater than 14.
Okay.
So it's set up for 14 if we have to go to that. If the stuff comes in great and we can shorten it to 13 and save the town money, obviously we'll do that, but we won't need to do further approval. We'll only need to do further approval if it goes longer, or if the rates change such that, essentially if there's a significant, we'll get to that in the next one because it has more to do with the lease. In terms of this particular one, this is pretty set right now, although again, obviously, once we start purchasing the stuff, hopefully it'll come in cheaper. And we'll be able to save some money. Did you have anything you wanted to add, or? You don't have to, I'm just didn't want to make sure you're good. Okay, thank you.
If you have questions.
Yep. Any other questions?
No.
And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-106, 2023 to authorize the attached lease for the buyback and upgrade of streetlights as part of an energy performance contract.
Second.
So this is the one, Rick, where basically it's subject, obviously to the stuff that we'd already passed. You can't get the lease without purchasing the stuff, but, what'll happen is when the schedule is finally done, so that all the terms of the lease are essentially being locked in now, for lack of a better way to put it. And then what would happen is, when the time comes to actually take out the loan or the lease, what will happen is we will get the schedule, they'll put it up. We were talking about, well, we'll approve it unless it's a significant change. And what we decided is, again, my goal was to lock in the lease terms now, so we're not caught, nothing. I don't want anyone, don't get me wrong, Real Lease doesn't seem like the company that does it, but you never know who's going to buy someone out, right? And I wouldn't want a company to come in and say, oh, by the way, ignore all this stuff that you negotiated up front. Now that we've got you over a barrel, let's change our terms, right? So we're kind of locking everything in, except since we don't know the schedule has to come back to the town board for approval. So we would do that whenever, again, when we're ready to pull the trigger.
Thank you.
On the loan itself. If there were any changes, obviously, we would have to come back and reapprove.
Mhm.
Any other questions? And hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor.
Wait, hold on, before we go on, I just want to make a couple notes on this. So just because I'm sure people will be asking, what's the schedule? From here, it has to go through Public Service Commission approval. So you're looking at probably 120 to 150 days before any of the street light stuff will be able to be worked on. However, in the meantime, we're going to start to take a look at the lights in our town park, which we already own and don't have to go through the Public Service Commission. We're going to take a look at what makes sense to start now. For those ones, I would have a resolution at a subsequent town board because even though they're included in this, we would essentially be buying them now and being reimbursed when the lease takes place. The thing being why we'd have to approve something here is because if somehow this whole thing went south, we would then have to, essentially, we're committing to paying for it if this thing doesn't go through. So, but like I said, that would allow us to get started on some of the stuff that we already own and not have to wait the 120, 150 days that it's going to take the PSC to approve the transfer and sale of the street lights from the utility companies. So, okay.
Is Centra gonna help facilitate that process?
They are. It's actually being done under this. You know, because it is part of but it doesn't make sense. Now,
I mean, the process of getting the RG, the utility contract signed and then sent to the PSC.
Yes. So. I'm sorry, I thought you meant the stuff I was just talking about. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 5-107, 2023, to authorize the purchase of a six-wheel plow dump truck for the highway department.
Seconded.
Any questions?
That included the plow and the salt, or didn't the salt box? I believe.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the type that has the sliding salt box and it'll sit on the rack, which is that's a much better system for doing that. Any other questions? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-108, 2023 to declare items surplus materials from the Recreation Department.
Second. Any further discussion? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Make sure with the clerk that there was a vote on the lease. Or is this a question?
Yeah, I recorded it on my end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dash 106, authorize supervisor to enter into a lease agreement.
Yep. Okay. No, I had my commentary happened after. Remember, if you remember, I interrupted
Right.
Rick from starting the next motion. Yep,
Voted on it.
that might be why you think there wasn't no problem. Okay, fellow board members, I have resolution 5-109, 2023 to adopt a cybersecurity risk management plan.
Second.
So again, thank you to our IT director, Andrew Stewart, and his team for getting this put in place. This will also make us New York State Shield compliant. Any other questions?
I just think it's a really important process in this day and age to have that in place. So I appreciate the work.
Agreed. Hearing no further comment, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 5-110, 2023 to authorize and or ratify the following agreements executed between February 23rd, 2023 and March 8th, 2023.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 5-111, 2023 to hire personnel and make the attached changes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have the last resolution, number 5-112, 2023, to issue a negative declaration and adopt local law number 4 of 2023 to amend the Henrietta Town Code, update chapter 79 relative to dogs.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Blanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Do we have any additional discussion items or comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none. Do we have any committee or miscellaneous reports from the board?
The only thing I have from the library is that they are looking for two library trustees for the library board. It is a volunteer position. And if you are interested, you can contact Adrian at the library or go online.
I attended the last school board meeting and I wanted to announce to the board, I don't think it's out yet, but on March 28th, we're invited to the town board meeting at 5:30. It's a dinner meeting where they present the 2023-24 budget to the town. And also to alert you that the new superintendent will be there. She officially starts April 3rd, but she will be at this dinner budget presentation. So you can mark your calendars, the 28th at 5:30 at the administration building.
Could you do me a favor and make sure Tiffany has that so it gets put on their
Sure.
calendars? Thank you. Anyone else? The town newsletter has been delayed slightly. We're waiting for the photographer to finish with the photos from the inductees to the 2023 Youth Hall of Fame. It's kind of become a tradition that we put them in this issue of the newsletter. So we're just waiting for the photographer to finish up with those. And then it will be going out. So I'm excited, and we'll be doing a town board resolution at a meeting in the not too distant future, congratulating those individuals. Any other comments, questions? Yep, coming up. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. Craig Eckert, Deputy Town Supervisor. Along with the other items up, Sustainability Committee, Color Henrietta Green Group has working on two volunteer items in town. One is April 1st at the library to plant the bioswales in the library with the native species plantings. I'm not sure exactly what's going in yet, but they're kind of taking care of a lot of that. And the second one they have planned is April 29th, I believe, or 26th, where it's a removal of invasive species from Tinker Park. They need some assistance with town. We're talking about how we can help out with that a little bit. But it'll be mostly volunteers removing some of those invasive species and getting them out. So two things coming up on that group as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I will second. Hearing no objections,